Hey there, wonderful metrics. Welcome to Edu-ca-te. In this video, we are continuing with fluvial landforms. This is part 2. In our previous videos, we've already done 4 landforms, and today we are going to continue on the 5th one. Stay tuned. So now we are going to start with natural levers. So in our previous videos, we've already done the oxbow leg, the meander scar, as well as other landforms such as the floodplain, as well as, yeah, that's all right. So now we are focusing here on natural levers. So natural levers are basically natural embankments. We say that they're known as natural embankments, or you can say those are raised river banks which are formed when a river floods. So when we're talking about raised river bends, we're talking about something like this. You can see that this is a river that is flowing, and you can see, you know that the river banks are more like the sides of the river, right? So basically river banks, I'm referring to the sides of the river. So when you say that the sides of the river are raised, it simply means that there is some material that is deposited on them. If you look carefully in this first image, you can see that these are the sides of the river, and they're kind of raised, or they are at a higher altitude. Okay, so you can see that this is the what? This is the sides of the river. So they've got they are raised, no matter they are high, or in a sense, you get what I'm saying? Right? So if you look at the second image, you can see that these are the sides of the river. These are the sides of the river. You can see that they are raised river banks. This is very natural. It's a natural landform that is known as levees, basically. It's a natural levees. The okay naturally basically means that at the sides of the rivers, or at the river banks, we have got the river banks are raised, or they've got embankments. We can use English, but basically simply means that the sides of the rivers are raised. Okay, so now the thing is, this happens whenever a river floods. So we need to know how do these natural levees form. So the first step in the formation of these natural levees, you can just see this is a transverse profile of a river showing this landform of a natural levers. If you can check out, this is the river, right? This is the course of the river, and then this is the river bed, right? And then you can see that at the sides of the river we have got these raised embankments. These are the natural levers that we are talking about. This is the diagram that they usually use. So now, first of all, when there is repeated flooding, so we start here when we're explaining the formation, we say that these natural embankments, or these natural levers, they form when a river repeatedly floods. It means that there's flooding that is occurring. The water is splashing all over around, right? You know that flooding simply means that the water is splashing all over around. So in this case, just imagine this as the water. So you are just imagining that there's flooding, and then the water is splashing all around. The water is splashing all around. So when this process happens repeatedly, meaning that when there is a repeated flooding, remember that the water carries eroded material. If you understand erosion, you know that water is more like a medium that carries a deposited materials that can be deposited. For example, the soil, for example, the rocks, so for example, the large boulders. There are many things that are carried by the water. Okay, so most of the times you can see when a river floods, those materials are deposited, right? So basically, the coarse material such as the rocks and boulders are deposited on the river banks, because the water here, it is flood, the river is flooding, right? Meaning that the water is all over the place. It is flowing all over this place, right? So as the water is flowing all over this place, it simply means that it is going to deposit. It's going to do what? To deposit the what? The large coarse material such as rocks. So basically, you will notice here that at these river banks, you can see that here it is written a biggest coarse material. So it means that the large rocks, the large chunks of soil and whatnot, they are just deposited at the sides of the river whenever the river starts flooding. And then now the smaller, the finer material, such as soil particles, they are deposited away from the river's course, or they are deposited further away. So basically, remember that the large rocks are heavy, right? So basically, the water cannot carry them for that long. So when the river is flooding and the water is splashing all over around, in this case, the heavy rocks, which are those large coarse material, they would be deposited right closer to the river, or they'll be deposited at the sides of the river. Okay, but the smaller fine material, such as soil particles. Soil, it's easy to carry, right? So the water will just carry the soil away and splash it far away. So you can see here the smaller fine material. If you look carefully where my pointer is, the smaller fine material such as soil particles are deposited away from the river's course, or they are deposited away from the river itself. So basically for us to, this is that's actually how we end up having these landforms, whereby you can see that these are the large coarse material that are making these sides of the river to be raised. Okay, so basically the large coarse material, or these large boulders, these large rocks, they are the ones that are making the sides of the river to be raised, or to be like natural levees. Okay, so basically this is due to the continuous flooding. But the smaller fine material, it will be deposited far away from the river itself. But the larger material, it is deposited at the riverside whenever this water splashes all around. You get the sense, right? So now that's how it works. That's how you explain the formation. So basically, as continuous flooding occurs, continuous deposition will also occur, leading to these raised river banks, which are the natural levees, right? So these raised river banks are just made up of sediment, silt, and other materials. Those are the biggest coarse material that we're talking about. Because remember, when we're talking about sediments, most of the times we're just talking about smaller pieces of rocks, right, that are deposited. Okay, so all of that will actually build up or accumulate at the sides of the rivers to form raised river banks, which we say they're known as natural levees. Why do we even study this thing, guys? It is because it's very important for us to know as human beings. Why is it important for us to know as human beings? Because it is significant to our lives. The first of all, the levees prevent the river from flooding. So the river is prevented from flooding by these natural levees, because they actually make the river to be deeper. Okay, imagine this, guys. You can see that, let's just say this is the first river. Let's just say this is river number one, right? It's river number one. And then this river, this is its course. Okay, this is the course of the river. It's just a side view of the river, right? The transverse profile of the river. And then now, what am I going to do? I'm going to draw river number two in black. So I'm saying river number two. Here for river number two, on its sides, or on the river sides, basically we have got these raised embankments, or these raised river banks, basically. So those are the natural levees. So let's just say this is a river that is having some natural levees. You can see that these are the raised river banks. You can see that at the river banks, you're having this large coarse material. If you compare these two rivers, which one will flood easily? Let's just say this is the water for the second river. Between this maroon river that I've drawn and the black river, which one will flood easily? It is the Maroon River, of course. Because imagine, guys, flooding really just simply means that the water is just there's too much water such that that's flowing out of the river and goes sideways. So here you can see that this river that is black is a bit deeper when you compare it to this one, right? So it's not easy for this water to just fill up easily and start flooding, or start going sideways, or start splashing around. Why is that? It is because there are these raised embankments, there are these natural levees. So the natural levees, they always prevent the river from flooding. I mean, imagine this. Let's just take a realistic river. If we look at this realistic river, the water, even if there is a lot of rainfall, right? Rainfall continues to happen, and then the water is full here. There's a lower chance, or there's a lower probability of flooding to occur, because these raised river banks, they kind of protect the river from the flooding. So that's very important, or a significance to rivers of these levees. The levees also protect the rivers from invaders. So basically, people can invade the river. Not necessarily that you are invading the river, but some people even pollute rivers. They like throw stuff into the rivers. But here, because they are raised river banks. If I come here, okay, okay, so because they are raised river banks, if I just try to throw some dirt into this river, it's not easy to throw the dirt, because there's these raised embankments, right? So the raised embankments kind of prevent what? They kind of prevent me from invading the river, in a sense, because it's not easy to just get to the water. Okay, so the river banks are raised. It's not easy to get to the other side of the water. So basically here, The levees, they also control the direction of flow of water. So the water can never flow in any other direction. I mean, like for example, let's just say this is the river. The river's water is flowing in this direction. So basically, it is impossible for you to find the water maybe flowing sideways or something, because there are these raised river banks, or these natural levees that are preventing what? That are preventing the water from taking any other direction. So they control the direction of the river. And then now, the other thing, which is most significant to us as humans, is that there is fertile soil that is found near the levees. Okay, so basically, remember I've said that there is smaller fine material that is deposited far away from the river's course, right? So basically, you can see that here when flooding occurs here, the largest coarse material, remember, it accumulates here at the riverbanks, right? That is the natural levels. But far away, we have got these smaller fine materials. So it is though the soil material, the soil particles, they are what? They're actually suitable for crop farming because they are fertile. They actually make fertile soil. Okay. So for example, you can see that this is a river, and these are people that are doing some livestock farming closer here. But basically, okay, even crop farming is possible. If I start planting some crops here, it is very possible to plant crops next to these levees. You can see that these are the raised river banks, right? So I can just plant some crops here and start my farm. Okay, so basically, this is enabled by the fact that there's fertile soil that is found near the levees, and the fertile soil will help me to grow my plants, and that will be suitable for agricultural production. It's also an economic advantage having levees, because farmers can be able to um, plant their crops and eventually make some growth economically. Now we have got the other types of a fluvial landform. In this case, we're looking at the deltas, right? So a delta is a fluvial landform that is found at the mouth of the river. Remember that the mouth of the river is when the river is about to enter the sea. Okay, so basically the deltas are found at the mouth of the river when the river is almost entering the sea. So basically, the deltas are characterized by different channels that are known as distributaries of the same river as the river flows into the sea. This is best visualized when we look at the diagram of a delta. So basically, in a delta, we have got one river. So it's just like one river, and then that river is in its lower course, or it is now at the river's mouth, it's about to enter the sea, right? So basically the river will separate, or it will split into what? Into smaller channels. So basically the river splits, it splits into what? Into smaller channels. And those channels are known as distributaries, because they kind of distribute. Yes, something like this. So this is not the same thing as tributaries. These are distributaries, right? So basically, there is one river that is flowing in this direction. So this is my river, and is flowing in this direction, and it splits as it is about to enter the sea. That is at the mouth of the river. It will start splitting into different channels, making a delta. So these different channels will be the one that will enter into the sea. So a delta in real life, it looks like this. It's a very beautiful pattern here. You can do a lot of tourism them. So these, you can see that there are smaller streams here, many smaller streams here, many smaller streams. These smaller streams, basically, they are coming from one river. So basically, it's more like there was one river here, and it is splitted into these smaller streams, forming deltas. Look at this a diagram of this. You can see that this is a river that is having water, and it's in its lower course because it's about to enter the sea, right? So now as it reaches here, you can see that it splits. The river splits. So the river splits, and some part of it goes that way, some part of it goes that way, some part of this goes that way. So you can see these are distributaries. It's written here distributary because the river is splitting. Let's just zoom in there. So you can see that here the river is splitting as it is moving, as it is flowing towards the sea, because this is the sea, the black sea there. So now as the river is moving towards the sea, or flowing towards the sea, it will split into different streams, little streams that are known as distributaries. And the distributaries can also split themselves into more different streams. So basically a river, when it is coming, it is only one, but when it is about to enter, when it is about to enter the sea, it will split into smaller channels. And that's it. Those landforms are known as what? That is known as deltas, right? So the deltas are formed in this following procedure. So basically, when you're explaining the formation of deltas, you need to mention that this is happening at the lower course of the river. That's the first thing. So at the lower course of the river has low speed due to the gentle gradient. You already know this because we've done the river profile. Okay, so I've made videos on river profile and I will link them in the description. So basically, when the river reaches its lower course, it has got small speed or low speed or small velocity, you can say that. All right. So as this river is having smaller velocity, it is having smaller velocity or smaller speed, or it's not flowing that fast due to the gentle gradient that is at the lower course. So now remember that when the river is not flowing so fast, it is not able to carry more eroded material. Remember, guys, that a river, as it is flowing, it is carrying some materials, okay? Eroded materials. So the river carries eroded materials as it is flowing towards the sea. So as it is having lower speed, as the river is starting to move slowly, to flow slowly, what happens? It doesn't have a greater power to carry those large materials such as rocks and whatnot, those eroded materials. The river cannot carry them anymore. Please watch my video on river profile. I've explained what is erosion and the real understanding of it. Okay, so the river doesn't have a better carrying capacity because it's now having what smaller speed. So basically, the river will deposit the material that is it's carrying. So the river, it will do what? It will deposit the material, or it will deposit the material that is within the water, right? And then when it is depositing it, it deposits it on the riverbed due to this smaller speed. So basically, you have got a river. I'm just going to do a side view of the river. So you have got a river that is flowing towards the sea. So this is the river and it's flowing towards the sea. So as this river is flowing towards the sea, it is now at the lower course. It has got smaller speed and hence it starts depositing the material. So it will deposit the material where? On the riverbed. So it will deposit the material on the riverbed because the river doesn't have that much carrying capacity. The water cannot carry the eroded material anymore. So it deposits it where? Right on the what? On the riverbed. So as it deposits it right on the riverbed, you can see that here it will split. The river channel will now split into what? Into smaller channels. Okay, so basically, if we look at from the above diagram here, you can see that this is the river as it is flowing. It is flowing with a smaller speed. It has got a less carrying capacity and it deposits the material within the river itself, causing the stream to split into two different channels that are known as distributaries. And then both bed load and suspended load are deposited. Basically, there is a deposition that is occurring there. We have got bed load and suspended load. Don't worry too much about it. I've explained it in the river profile video. Please check it out as well. So there's bed load, there's suspended load. All of that is deposited material. And these produce fertile alluvial land. So basically, the land is fertile. You are able to plant some crops on it. You're able to do quite a lot of things having these deltas. So deltas are very significant for that because deltas are usually fertile areas and they support extensive crop cultivation. Because we've already said that here, the deposited load that is deposited by the deltas, it is fertile, right? The soil is fertile there, so you can do some crop cultivation. So it's an economic advantage because remember, as we are planting some crops, we'll get some yield, and definitely that will help grow our economy, right? So now there is also this thing known as a sand and gravel quarrying. If you don't know what quarrying is, it simply means that you're going to collect sand. For example, if you have ever seen people that are building a house or that are constructing something, they use quite a lot of sand, right? Where do they get the sand? They quarry it. I mean, you cannot just start digging sand any random place. Jiggy jiggy, you are digging sand so that you can go and build a house. No, the sand is quarried. So quarrying sand and quarrying gravel, you can see the deltas basically they've got sand. They've got sand like in Kabati, literally the sand. So here you can see that here this is sand. It is being quarried. This is known as sand mining. Actually, you can mine sand. Yes, sand is more like a mineral in this case because sand is very important. You cannot build a house without having sand, right? So basically, sand and gravel quarrying. It is happening in what? In these deltas. And remember that the sand can be used for a variety of purposes, such as building roads, such as constructing infrastructure, everything that has to do with building something. You will require some sand and gravel, and you have to do what? Quarry that or mine that from where? From the deltas. So that's the significance to us as humans. And also, the deltas are a source of water. Because remember that the deltas are just those smaller streams of those distributaries and whatnot. They have got water, so they're a source of water for us humans. So if you are staying in an area where there are deltas, for example, here, this is an area here. This is actually a tourism area. You can see people actually touring, but you say like people, other people like stay next to the river, exactly next to the river or next to a channel. They are not scared. Would say maybe there might be flooding. No, 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 no. They're not scared at all. But basically, you can stay closer to a river like this. There is a great source of water, especially let's just say maybe there is no municipality or there is no a service provider that will give you some tap water or something like that. There is some water that is available. So deltas are a source of water. You can use water to do a variety of things. You can use to plant. You can use to plant crops and all of that. And also tourism, as I've already mentioned, deltas are very, very beautiful. Okay, they are a tourist attraction. They are aesthetically appeasing, or they are beautiful to the eye of the human being. So basically, you know that people can tour and come just to see a delta, just to see a place. For example, this delta, I think this is found in Botswana, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure. I extracted this image from Google, by the way. So this image shows a delta. People are, you can see that there are ships and boats here. People are doing some leisure activities. They're doing some tourism there because the deltas, they are good tourist attractions. People come from UK just to get to your river. Just to enjoy time in your river or something like that. So basically, the deltas they facilitate those leisure activities such as tourism, and you know that tourism is a bigger contributor to the economy. So it's an economic advantage of deltas. And deltas, they also ensure biodiversity because there are many species that can use these deltas. There are many species. We're talking about things such as what you can see, even some deltas, they even have wild animals such as elephants, such as a variety of them. It has got a species that are found in the soil, species that are found in the water, many different animals. So it makes the place to be diverse. There's like a biodiversity in the what in the deltas. So they are very significant to us humans. By the way, they are contributing to the gross domestic product. Okay, they are contributing to the value of the country, just in simple terms.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Edu-ca-te is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
So now the last one that is similar to a delta is known as the braided stream. The braided stream, as you can hear, is braided. So it looks like the braid, lento le yamantombazane le, the braids of a ladies, right? So basically, a stream, a braided stream is a stream that is consisting of multiple smaller channels, which are distributaries. So we have distributaries in deltas. We also have distributaries in braided streams, right? And these distributaries now, the difference is just that in a braided stream, the distributaries, they divide and they recombine before entering the river or before entering the sea, actually, not the river, before entering the sea. Or you can say another river is still valid. So a stream that is consisting of multiple small and shallow channels, which are known as distributaries. Remember, the distributaries, they divide from the main channel, right? They occur when we're having the main river dividing into smaller channels, right? Which are known as distributaries. So the difference here is that they divide and they recombine multiple times, resembling the patterns of a braid. Let's just make a demonstration here. Let's just say this is your river, and then it divides into distributaries. It divides into distributaries. So the river is flowing in this direction. It divides into three smaller channels, and these smaller channels, they recombine later on. They do what? They combine again later on. They combine again, and then maybe they divide again, and then they combine again. So it's all about dividing and recombining. So basically the distributaries, they divide and they recombine again. They divide and they recombine again. So that makes a, you can see that this looks like a braid, the braid that ladies put here in their heads. Okay, so the pattern here that is created by this braided stream, it resembles the strands of a braid. So basically, we can see that this is how they look like in real life. You can see that they are very beautiful. Okay, I would wish to tour in places like this. Okay, so basically, you can see that here you are having the streams. You can see sometimes they are dividing and then sometimes they are combining again, but they look like braids. You can see that this is looking like braids. How? I mean, like you guys always see ladies out there having braids. These are braids, 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 braids. So you can see that the streams, they are dividing, and they also recombine. Okay, so this is just a simpler diagram for you to kind of visualize what are these deltas, what are these braided streams. So now what's important here is for you to know the formation. Usually it's not asked as an 8 marks question, but you need to know how does a braided stream form, at least for 2 marks or 4 marks. So when the river's carrying capacity is exceeded at its lower course. So these ones, they also form at the lower course, just like the deltas, because they are similar to each other. All of them, they've got distributaries. Remember that the deltas, they have distributaries, but they don't recombine. They've got like smaller streams, but they don't recombine. If we go back to the deltas, you need to remember that at the deltas case, we have what? We have got a river that is splitting into what? Into smaller distributaries, and those smaller distributaries will enter into the sea. Okay, those smaller distributaries. But the difference is that in a braided stream, these actually split and then they combine again later on. That's why they make a braid kind of a pattern. Get the sense, right? So that's how it works. So here, when the river's carrying capacity is exceeded at its lower course, the river will start to deposit its load within the channel. It's still the same process, just as a delta. Yeah, still the same channel. Basically, the river doesn't have a much carrying capacity because at the lower course, remember that it has got low speed. The river is moving slowly. All of those kind of stuff. So basically, here, this is my river. It's moving slowly now. So it will deposit. You can see that the soil here, all the soil and the water that you can see here between this water, it has been deposited. This has been deposited by the river because the river cannot be able to carry anymore. This was one river, guys. This was one river, but because it's dividing, because it's moving slowly now, it starts depositing all its eroded material within the channel itself or within the river itself. And when that happens, that will force the river or the river's path to be blocked, because basically you can see that the river cannot just flow easily here because now this deposited material or this load or this soil, everything that you can see here, it is blocking the river's path. So as it is blocking the river's path, what happens? It causes it to divide into smaller channels that are distributaries. And then these distributaries, they will do what? They will recombine multiple times, and then they'll do what? They'll form a braid pattern. Simply that. So the formation here is the same as the one in a delta. The delta and the braided stream, they're almost the same. It's just that in a braided stream, these distributaries, they divide and they recombine once again. Now, they are very significant to us as humans because they serve as a source of water for crop farming, just like deltas, guys. It's kind of normal now to say, a valley, these are containing water. A river has got water. I mean, what's a river without water? No, mhlambe you've got rivers in your villages that don't have water. I don't know, rivers that transport some air. No, a river must have water in it, okay? So it serves as a source of water, okay? So it serves as a source of water for crop farming, Jal. It's very good for agricultural production and food security. So the deposited silt, it forms fertile soil that can be used for farming as well. So this soil that you can see here that I've been circling here, that has been deposited, or this alluvial land, basically is fertile enough for you to do some crop production there. So you can do some crop production using the soil that has been in the silt that has been deposited by forming by okay at the lower course in a braided stream. So now the thing is, the area makes it difficult to build roads and railway lines. I mean, guys, who can build roads in a place like this? It's just like obviously that you cannot build roads in such a place, right? It makes it very difficult. Why is it so difficult to build roads here? There's a very high risk of flooding, guys. These braided streams. What will happen if there's flooding here? What will happen? It's going to be it's not going to be well, all right. But other people, they still do force and live, just like the people who stay near deltas. You can see these people are like closer to water, like exactly closer to water. That's why I ask myself, what will happen when it floods, right? But the area is very difficult for you to do some construction, especially constructing roads. You can't construct a road in a place like this, except if you're gonna construct a road that is on top of a river. I don't know, maybe you'll be walking with boats on the roads or something like that. So thank you so much for watching this wonderful metrics. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends also.